Welcome to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
But have you guys ever seen these photos of what washed up on the shore straight off the coast of St. Augustine?
No.
Okay, in the late 1800s, this unidentified creature washed up on the shore. It's like 18 feet long, but what's super interesting is they said it had 7 legs and a tail. But as research has continued on this creature, they're surmising it wasn't a tail, it was the 8th appendage. And most of the octopus-like arms had been cut pretty short. You know, this thing had been dead in the sea. And when you think about some of the earliest stories of creatures like this, or like the pirate era, 1700s,
like
and
a kraken.
yeah, like they're saying because of the size of this thing, and if it were an actual octopus, the tentacles could have been like 100-foot long.
Oh.
Because they're
Delicious.
like, you can see them in the photos, but they're like this big around at the nubs.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so the actual creature would have been what we see pictures of, like the stories we hear. And so if they took samples and they compared it to octopus, and they said a tissue sample, it's like octopi giganta something in Latin, but they're calling it a giant octopus. That's what it is.
Whoa.
Dr. DeWitt Webb in November 30th of 1896 is the first person who arrived where 2 boys had discovered this octopus on the beach. And so it's a professional science person who actually collected the first samples.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, this is right off the coast, right off St. Augustine. So all those pictures we see of pirates and stuff, that is real. And for some reason, we don't know about it.
Oh my gosh.
Where's the rest of those suckers? Literally.
There's so much about our history that we're being lied to about. I don't find it that difficult to imagine this being true. That would have had to have been a baby one, though. The way the guy on the podcast was describing it was much larger than what he was showing in that photo. I would imagine there's probably something like that still living in the ocean today, and we just don't go down far enough to actually see it. That one probably just died closer to the surface than usual, so it washed up on the beach instead of falling to the ocean floor. Most of the ocean is still unexplored. We probably know less than half of all the species that live down there.
This is a great one if you want to see MK Ultra technology in action. It's one step beyond the sacred mushroom. Where
One
Puharsh,
step beyond the sacred mushroom.
One Step Beyond is the show name, and it's the sacred mushroom. It's on YouTube, and it's Puharsh is there flashing lights in people's eyes, hypnotizing them to make them psychic. There's a portion, there it is.
Science is not yet given it a
Right
name.
there. Keep going.
So if you don't, that's kind of hard to say.
That's the early photic and magnetic stimulator that that MK Ultra was using. Puharsh developed
Tell me what you see.
Oh, really?
to put people in their states. Yeah, it's an American version of the Lita machine from Russia.
Lower your head a little bit. A little more. Now.
Sounds awful.
It does. Sounds diabolical.
Yes. Now I see. I see so many things I can't tell you. Can't you slow it? Slow it? Now I see but I see so many colors that are. Go. Are they pretty? In geometric signs, now there's like great things. They're magnificent. What they are. They're magnificent. I have never been so aware of color. Of color.
What is this thing actually doing?
After this, he goes off and does psychic testing on him and finds that he became much more accurate choosing cards. So it's opening up psychic ability. That was the intent, at least. But it's putting him in a hypnotic state. And this is his testing.
One step beyond the sacred mushroom. I just wanted to repeat that for any of you who might have missed it, and he did say that the entire thing is available on YouTube. I haven't watched this yet, but it looks absolutely fascinating. That guy's reaction to the light coming out of that device made it seem like he was getting an instantaneous reaction that was way stronger than he had originally anticipated. I wonder if someone could track down the blueprints for this device so that we could build one and start testing it out. Maybe this device could help us all start developing our psychic abilities if it doesn't have any severe side effects or anything.
A farmer from out in the area called me and said, hey, somebody's buying land out here. And I thought, okay. He goes, but it's a lot of land. So I went down to the county and looked at the property records, and I could see the name Flannery, LLC, and that they had bought up at that time more than 20,000 acres.
We ourselves got a letter offering to buy our ranch at inflated prices. We made it clear there's no way we're going to sell this ranch.
They decided to sue the ones who would not sell to them.
They came in the dark of night, kind of. They did this stuff secretly.
They've just ticked off a whole lot of the community, and then they have the gall to sue farmers that don't want to sell. It's just like, what are you thinking?
Flannery also sued dozens of other family farmers who held out after discussing the value of their land amongst each other, accusing them of collusion and antitrust violations.
Of course they talked. Farmers do that. People do that. So these farmers, what's happened is they are going broke trying to fight back against these billionaire boys.
The buyers maintained a veil of secrecy around their identity until August 2023. That's when the New York Times broke the news that Flannery is the front group for a company called California Forever. And California Forever, backed by billionaires such as Reid Hoffman, Laurene Powell Jobs, and Mark Andreessen, wants to build a privately run city in the middle of the county's protected farmland with far less regulation.
The group wants to build a green community that it claims will include thousands of affordable homes, shopping, dining, and walkable neighborhoods.
So they're saying they want to be good neighbors with people in Sonoma County, and at the same time they're suing their own literal fence-by-fence neighbors.
The public face of California Forever is its CEO, a former Goldman Sachs whiz kid named Jan Schwamek. Schwamek has also been confronted by residents.
Good neighbors don't sue their neighbors.
Schwamek was crude and did not understand that he would have had a much better reception if he had talked to people.
Schwamek self-published a book in 2009 titled Racing Towards Excellence, which summed up his personal outlook with a misquote attributed to Ayn Rand. Quote, "The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me." The stakes are sky high, both locally and for the nation. If the project goes through, a precedent will be set with billionaires able to buy their way through community resistance and create their own privately held societies.
They did this same thing in Silicon Valley. They promised them all these houses and all this. Well, look at them now, unhoused. They gonna do the same thing to us.
This needs to be addressed at the federal level. I am so beyond sick of this crap. As if there wasn't already a clear and obvious attack on our food supply, the few farms that have actually been able to stay open under all these crazy laws and regulations are getting forced off of their land because someone who has more money has decided that they want it. This sounds like the Katy Perry situation on steroids. Look, I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I have no problem with someone having $1 billion. If you earned it, I don't care if you have $1 zillion. But it's becoming more and more obvious, due largely to stories like these, that having enough money gets you out of having to follow the rules that the rest of us have to abide by. That I have a problem with.
Let's take a journey to the center of a black hole to find out that they're completely and totally made up. The concept first arrived through science fiction. In 1783, theoretical astrophysicist John Mitchell said, hey, maybe there's a thing called a dark star where the gravity's so strong that not even light can escape. Then throughout history, people just ran with the idea in several different ways. So now the science community is out here looking for these things, hoping that they find one. And finally, in 2019, they found one. Now, ChatGPT, how did they get this photo?
They didn't just point a telescope and snap a picture like with a regular camera. They aimed a network of radio telescopes at a region of space where they believed a black hole was, and then collected radio wave data over several days. The data didn't come back as an image. It came back as noise patterns and signal strengths. Then, teams of scientists ran that data through specially designed algorithms, like Clean and others, to reconstruct what they thought the source must look like. The image was really a computer-generated interpretation of what the black hole should look like, based on the math, the assumptions, and the model they fed in. One of the lead researchers even said that the final image was created after months of back-and-forth tweaking and debating among different teams.
They get this from that? For real? Listen to the sound. So they take these sounds and then make a picture out of it. They've never seen a black hole or even seen light around a black circle before. And they've been giving us the physics of black holes since as long as I could remember. Remember, they'd say things like,
you would have to compress the Earth to the size of a coin in order for Earth to become a black hole. That's how much matter these black holes contain.
And it's just absolutely ridiculous. They say if you were to fall into the event horizon, there'd be a hologram of your body because light couldn't escape, so it'd rip you apart particle by particle, and the hologram of the light that was reflecting off your body would exist at the event horizon till like the end of time or something insane like that. It's all science fiction.
I don't think that space is fake or anything, but I certainly don't think we know as much about it as they try to let on. I think this was a great example here. And not only did they release a computer-generated image and title it First Ever Photo of a Black Hole, but there's just absolutely no way that audio is legitimate. Just think of the amount of interference that sound wave would encounter getting here if that black hole is so far away that we can't even get an actual photo of it. This doesn't even sound remotely believable. This is just another example of why I can't help but to question everything that NASA puts out. They just lie too much. Hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com.
These pills have gotten way too out of control. 2-in-1 to get harder and go longer. Which, yes, those are desirable skills. People want that, most people. But wait, hold on a second. There's a 3-in-1 pill now? Viagra plus Cialis? Evidently one is not enough. We now need both? Okay, if there's ever a sign that we need some kind of societal reset, this has to be it. And we're not talking about old people here, we're talking about young men. Over the past decade, doctors' reports of young adults and adolescents with ED have increased rapidly, with one practice reporting a 31 times increase in young patients aged 14 to 21 presenting with ED. Now, 1 in 4 men under 40 are believed to experience ED today. 1 in 4, that is very disturbing, not ideal. Although if you think about it, it sort of makes sense, because if you think back 20, 30 years ago, it used to be kind of difficult to come across or obtain explicit images. Like, to get a magazine like this, you really had to work for it. But nowadays, you open Instagram and it looks like this. And then my conspiracy brain goes, are they doing this on purpose? You know, the owner of Pornhub did say that he wanted to normalize porn in the West. Says they want porn to be boring and that government should take pride in sexual expression and help make porn normal. Last week, I saw a video of a user reporting that when the meta algorithm pushes OF-style content, the not interested button mysteriously disappears, but then reappears in other types of videos. Like, what is this all about? Very, very peculiar. I mean, could they be doing psychological warfare? Is this what's going on? And just check out this story. Quote, in the early 2000s, the Israeli army pinpointed one of the most detestable sins in Islam and subjected their Palestinian enemies to it in an ultimate attempt at demoralization. Their crude and rather extreme choice of psychological weaponry was pornography. Israeli soldiers seized control of 3 of the 4 major news stations in Ramallah and forcibly played graphic images and videos on TVs inside hundreds of homes. I mean, that's freaking demonic. Look, don't come at me. I'm not advocating for banning any of this. I'm just saying that might be kind of worrisome, might be a bad sign for society if arousal, which is one of, I think, the most basic human responses, now has to be medically induced. That's all I'm saying.
This guy is really good at connecting the dots sometimes, and I think he nailed it here. I know a lot of you were probably wondering what this video was going on about whenever he started talking about the supposed ED epidemic. I think this is important to talk about, though, because we are literally facing a population collapse. Graphic sexual imagery has become so prevalent in today's media and advertising that you almost can't get away from it, even if you choose to not look at pornography. It used to be that people would keep themselves clothed in public and they would have 10 or 12 kids. Now everyone walks around flaunting their bodies and showing off what they're working with, and men are having trouble getting aroused. I think there's a connection there. It looks like a clear-cut example of overstimulation to me. What else did they expect would happen? Everyone knows that saying that there's no such thing as too much of a good thing is bullcrap.
Like an animal, but then I've seen men become not people.
Like literally
not be the
change.
people. Yeah.
Okay.
And there is like lycanthropy, and there's these understandings of what the Watchers are capable of doing that most people are just woefully ignorant of. And that's why they're perishing. It's because they lack a basic understanding of history. And one of the predominant understandings of what a Watcher, specific class of celestial beings, is capable of is augmenting itself. They can shapeshift. That is by their nature. They're literally called metaskizmazotoi in the Greek in the New Testament. And it's because he says it's marvel not, because Hasatan, you could say like transforms himself. That's a good word for it. But he shapeshifts himself into an angel of light. And his messengers, his apostles, disciples, they do the same thing. And he's like, this is because they are capable of becoming anything they want to be in order to deceive on one side of the equation. And that's what they'll do. And so when people start engaging in these necromantic rituals and other stuff, and they start to seek the embodiment of these celestial ones, they can get these things on them and in them, and they can't contain them. And some of these guys who are messing with this stuff, who don't come from the bloodline, are incapable of cohabitating like a parasite, and they feed off of each other, and they can't handle it. And so that's why families are recruited from these bloodlines, and children are recruited out, even if they don't know anything about it. Like you said, the vast majority of people who come from these bloodlines, there's a lot of muddying of the waters. There's a lot of purity that's been changed. There's a lot of half-breeds. There's a lot of quarter breeds, right? There's a lot of people that don't know this stuff, and they start to get into lesser magic, and all of a sudden it's like the doors of everybody open to them. But that's why. It's because they can host these things better. Whereas those that don't, they get taken over by this stuff, and they can't change back. They can't return, in a sense. Like, people become completely possessed and are incapable of expelling the darkness after that. And who do you turn to? You're like, you're going to go to the Catholic guy who's all into the same thing that you're into, you know? Like, most people don't understand what a real deliverance is required for somebody that has gone down this far down, where they are consuming people. Like, that's a deep, devastating psychological, spiritual shock, physical, your liver, like the health. This is why I'm huge into health, because I physically had to try to find ways to help people who have done all of these things. Like, the consumption of human blood does horrific things to the human body, you know? And this is a major practice within this. These families do drink blood. That's why we have these vampire class of people. It's not some kind of myth. People consume blood in order to live, extend their life force.
I have a theory about something. He's talking about how they recruit people who are in these specific bloodlines because they're able to perform rituals easier or better or something like that. What if the original intended purpose of all of these DNA testing companies that seem to pop up overnight was to track these specific bloodlines and find people who were connected to certain families that they could then either recruit and use or abduct and use against their will? And now that these companies are facing bankruptcy, people are actually trying to buy this data. What's the purpose behind that? What use could someone possibly have for a bunch of public DNA information? Until they legalize cloning, I can only imagine that they're digging through that information in search of something. What do y'all think about this theory?
Guys, I have a whopper of a story if you want to hear it. The story comes from a Native American journalist who, right after Roswell, went looking for answers. He interviewed old chiefs, and he said, "Do you guys have any stories of flying craft?" He interviewed a Paiute chief in Death Valley, and this is the story that chief told him. He told them of the Hav-Musuvs, people who had inhabited these lands for centuries. They were highly advanced. They could kill you with a death stick that emitted light and sound, vaporize people instantly. They could also carve stone very easily. It said they could melt stone, move it around freely. It said they first came here before the wagon people ever came, and they came in boats, and it's when the Gulf of California was a bigger thing, all the old Spanish maps say, and that these people came up here in these boats. They inhabited cavernous cities, went deep underground, and the natives did not with them. They gave them a wide distance, and eventually the water dried up and they started moving around on giant airships. They said they were canoes that could fly through the sky. They dipped almost like eagles dip and would go up and down and had a slight whirring sound. They said that they absolutely keep to themselves. They fly beyond the mountains there, and we don't go looking for them. This journalist asked, he said, "Did any of you ever make contact with them?" He was quiet for a long time, and then he spoke, and he said, "Yes, before the Spaniards came and the wagon people came, there was a chief who lost the love of his life, and he sought death, and so he went to go have death by foreigner. He climbed the mountains to go and make contact with these people in the hopes that they would end his life. Instead, they found him and they took him in and they showed him magnificent things, possible technologies under the surface of the earth. He stayed with them for months until they dropped him back off into his village. He shared as much of the wisdom as he could with them and told them stories and legends, and they held on to these legends. Many people say, what about the indigenous people? Where are the stories from the indigenous people if all of these castles have been here for centuries? So there's a story. It was published before all the newspapers were bought up by the same conglomerates. I think it's as trustworthy a story as any other stupid story we choose to believe. I think that is a ton of boxes ticked for the Tartarian theory. By Tartarian, just anyone who challenges the legitimacy of the history surrounding these buildings. I think this story definitely raises a lot of questions, but it answers a few. Answers a big one, which is that I think they're totally lying about everything. Obviously, we are post-apocalyptic. Our technology now sucks, and it once was much more advanced. I think it's time we truly discover our history and put all the pieces together. Have one piece of a story, you know? That would be sick.
I love what he says there at the end, that we're a post-apocalyptic society whose technology sucks and it was once more advanced. The more I dig, the more I feel everything pointing me toward that same conclusion. What stood out to me in that story, though, was not that it had all the usual characteristics of a Native American tale of the ant people, but the way the guy describes the airship. It sounds like he's describing a blimp or something, and it may be a stretch to think that blimps and airships were around that long ago, but I'm starting to see some really compelling evidence that would suggest that they've been around for a ludicrous amount of time and it's just been hidden from us.
There are so many photos from the past that you can see with clear alterations or whited out skies. Here is but a small part of my collection of some of the more obvious edits. And how I came across these is rather simple. I browse a lot of digital archives like the Library of Congress.gov, LOC.gov, and just browse through the old pictures. And before you know it, you'll find them yourselves. Clear alterations. A lot of times in woods, on the tops of buildings, you'll see them. They did such a sloppy job at the alterations here. I think they never thought we would be looking at these with such a discerning eye. But once you open your eyes to the hidden past, the lies that we've been told, you see not just the alterations in the photos, but you see the alterations of our true past everywhere. This is one of my favorite obvious edits from the Omaha World's Fair in 1898 in Omaha, Nebraska. A very sloppy edit indeed. And as to why they whited out the skies, I believe it was to hide airships and other flying vessels that I believe were around long before the narrative of our history tells us they were. History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
And here is, in my opinion, the single most compelling point in this argument. We have photos of the airships at their mooring stations, so we know how they charged and how people got on and off of them. But then you see these old photos of these buildings that supposedly predate the invention of the airship, and they have the same structure built on top of them that we see in these photos of them offloading passengers from a blimp. So what was the purpose for those towers before the airship was invented? I highly doubt that someone invented the airship and then everybody looked around and realized that they had already accidentally built the infrastructure to support it. That doesn't make any sense. Something about this is not adding up. I think those airships were around for a lot longer than they're telling us.
Do you want to try dreaming while you're awake? Well, now you can. Introducing SeptaSync. Now, SeptaSync is my own creation, and it's based loosely off of a really old CIA file where they were using sound frequencies to heavily mess with people's brain. Now, this was created by the Monroe Institute, but the base science of it is you can use sound frequencies to entrain your brainwaves, meaning sound can change the way your brainwaves move. That is really cool. Now, look at it like this. If I played 9 hertz in one ear and 11 hertz in the other, your brain would start vibrating at the difference of those two numbers, 2 hertz. 2 hertz is very similar to how your brain vibrates when you're asleep. So boom, you can use 2 frequencies to make you feel sleepy, make you feel awake. And for the longest time, nobody advanced the science because waves hit each other, just like waves in the ocean hit each other and interfere, the same thing happens when you start stacking more frequencies on. What if you want to be sleepy and awake at the same time? Well, that's not possible. Wasn't possible until I had a dream that explained to me how to do this. I made it and it actually worked. Now, I recently got back from my first health convention where I had doctors, some high-profile people like celebrities trying this, and I got rave reviews. We were so new we didn't have a sign yet. We had to write on paper saying, "Dream while you're awake, $10. Now, here's the thing with Septisync, my own creation. It should not work based on fundamental science. I have no idea why it even works, and it's doing things that normal binaural beats will not do. Now, I use 6 of the frequencies to hopefully attack different sleeping centers of the brain, and one of them plays every 5 minutes for 30 seconds to keep you mentally awake. Think mind awake, body fully asleep. That's what these people experience. They'd be fidgeting, they'd start listening, they're fidgeting. Within 2 minutes, they're still as a rock. They come out 9 minutes later. Whoa. Now, almost every person did the same thing. They came out of it with a shit-eating grin and said, "Wow." I'd say, "How was it?" They'd go, "Good." Now, here's the thing with it. Your body sleeps, but your mind is completely awake. This could be revolutionary for sleepless rest. One of the things I discovered from doing these in-person demos and watching people do this. Now, after the success of Septisync at this conference, I got invited to another one, and the guy gave me a crazy discount and basically said, "I'm gonna make sure you get here, tell me what you can pay." And he hooked it up. He hooked it up. We're leaving in 2 weeks. Gonna be doctors, corporations, all of the big stuff. Now, the coolest part about this and the biggest mystery is Septisync relies, of course, on audio processing. You have to hear the frequencies for your brain to start dancing with them. Your brain waves need to change. It works on deaf people. I have no idea how it works on deaf people, but it works on fully deaf people. At this trade show, I saw a guy wearing hearing aids. I said, "Hey, sir, I made this technology." A lady who's fully deaf took out her hearing implants and said that, or she took out the power banks and said, "It worked on her. Would you take out your hearing implants and give it a try? It'll take just 11 minutes. And this man gave it a shot. He took out his hearing aids. He laid there, fully asleep. He wakes back up and he goes, "That's some really cool technology." But then he realized something. He said, "I can hear you right now. I can hear you better than normal." It's been a week. This guy still has not put his hearing aids back in 1 week. A 75-year-old man. He's claiming his hand tremors are reducing. Guys, I don't know what I created. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Now, right here is the email from yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. I don't know. I'm really tired and I've been working 15 hours a day. Still no need for hearing aid. Super. He sent it from AOL. That's how you know this is someone who is not young. Now, I recently had a birthday. Me and my dad have birthdays really close together. We celebrated it together. Most of my family is in the medical field, and I got to the chance to tell them about my creation, how everything about it works. Mostly that I don't know how it works. They were super confused. Doctors and nurses are sitting there going, "That shouldn't work. That's really cool. I have no idea about it. I need testing." But it looks like we have enough. I talked with some FDA regulators recently, and they told me I have almost everything that I need. I just need to start getting doctors to sign off on this and find universities to pick up some of the research. If you guys know anybody in the research world, please let me know. And if you want to listen to Septisync yourself, the link is in my bio.
I've been watching this guy talk about the development of this Septisync project ever since he came up with the idea. And when you get into the comments on this video and start reading some of the stuff that's posted by people who claim to have used this, you start seeing some really outlandish claims. But I highly doubt that many people are being paid to talk this thing up. I think it's actual genuine feedback. And if you watch this guy's other content, he's a really blunt, straightforward, no sugarcoating kind of guy. He doesn't strike me as a scam artist. I included the link to this so y'all could all go check it out. I haven't done it myself yet, and I'm not suggesting that anyone else try it, but I do intend to look into it. If you're interested in checking it out for yourself, there is a link to his website specifically to this page in the description of this video. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com. And I do have many new shirts being designed right now. So keep checking the store regularly, or just watch the videos and I'll let you know whenever I release something new. And don't forget to drop a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But with all that out of the way, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.